Point, our first topic today. The country of Yemen is being torn apart by a tribal rebellion, a secessionist movement, and the worst poverty and unemployment in the Arab world. And Al-Qaeda has been quick to take advantage of the chaos and create a presence in Yemen. How can the U.S. be most effective in fighting this terrorist organization? Richard, I'm going to start with you on this one.
It's going to be tough in Yemen. More so because we're fighting a two-front war in Afghanistan, and then we're doing, it may not look like a war, but we're also helping Pakistan fight a war. And so Al-Qaeda realized that it's getting a little hot in Dodge, it's time to go someplace else. So Yemen and Somalia are the two places that they are kind of regrouping. And you're not kidding about Yemen being one of the poorest countries in the Arabian Peninsula. They have a 45% unemployment rate. So if Americans could take a look at that and think half the country almost would be unemployed, people would be really upset and more easily rolled over to some militancy that they previously might not have even thought of.
But also assume that when people are desperate like that, if someone comes in and offers you some money to hide them or house them, that it's putting food on your table and they're not going to argue with that. So it's pretty easy for them to infiltrate into that.
Let me challenge that a little bit. I mean, look at the Christmas Day bomber. He came from a wealthy family, and he was highly educated. He was an engineer by training. The idea that terrorists get recruits because they're impoverished or uneducated.
I'm not talking about recruits. I'm talking about places for them to hide and train.
Yes.
Yeah, it's as a safe haven. Yeah.
There's some other things going on. They have a dwindling oil resource, which is going to be tapped dry in this decade, and so their actual ability to export and be on the world market to get hard currency in to support the government or whatever programs they've got going on, it makes it a little tough. And the other thing that makes it very interesting is that in terms of the geography, it's right there on the edge of the Red Sea. It's very close to Somalia. It's where the pirates, all the piracy is taking place. So I find it to be very problematic because you've got Saudi Arabia right on top, and they're nervous enough already as things are going, and so that whole Arabian Peninsula has the opportunity to be up for grabs in terms of all the little countries that surround Saudi Arabia.
So.
We've already started helping them, though. I mean, we've given, the United States government has given the Yemen people, the Yemen government, some money to fight terrorism and to fight Al-Qaeda and these small sects.
But we're giving money to a corrupt government, right? So how much good is that going to do?
Well, I mean, just recently they rounded up one of the top Al-Qaeda members along with 3 of his other henchmen, if you want to call them. And, I mean, that wasn't just the Yemen government and the Yemen authorities that brought these people in. That was also the United States. I mean, so you're asking why not, give these people, if they're looking for, extra monies and they're feeling impoverished, maybe that's how they can become terrorists. We can also give those government
I would like to see Saudi Arabia get off their duff, because it's their back door, and start saying, hey, we need to help our brothers here for our own personal benefit. I mean, they're a Sunni nation. Yemen is basically Sunni. They have a whole raft of issues that they can help.
Saudi Arabia has a lot of money.
They have a lot of money, but the problem in Yemen, one of the big problems in Yemen is they have no infrastructure. They don't have roads, they don't have bridges, they don't have schools. Not that they need bridges, because there's only 3 small rivers that are in Yemen.
Well, I think the United States is kind of coming around to the realization that they're not fighting a war on terror with a specific country.
Right.
They're fighting against a movement, and I think it's like a balloon. If you squish it in one side, it pops out somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they've got the United States has to recognize they have to go after the enemy wherever it is.
Right. We have to adapt.
But to both Mike and Richard's point, well, follow that logic. If you're not fighting a country, you're fighting a movement, then obviously you got to go to the roots. too. I mean, you have to start figuring out and attacking this issue of all these madrasas and places that are fomenting this. You have to get serious about putting pressure on the various governments around there to not be encouraging those kinds of things. I mean, you got to play for the long term. You just can't constantly play whack-a-mole forever, because you're going to get worn out in that process. And I want to agree with Richard that ultimately the one advantage we have when we tactically assess what to do going forward with Yemen is that it's right on the border with Saudi Arabia, and the more that it becomes an al-Qaeda base, the more that's dangerous to Saudi Arabia and their kingdom, because those terrorists can be easily exported across the border to make trouble for them. So in this case, if I were, putting together a strategy within the administration, I'd be looking for ways to turn this over and to lean on the Saudi Arabians to take the lead in dealing with a lot of that, because really they're the ones who are going to suffer the consequences the quickest, because if there are real training camps there and if they really are using that as a base, the Saudis will see that terrorist activity faster than anyone else.
And have there been any talks with Saudi Arabia that
probably have been. I don't know.
It's not been very
Saudi
public.
Arabia are not public.
Yeah, it's not been very public.
The other thing is Yemen, unlike Somalia, is a very rugged country with mountains, and so for the al-Qaeda fighters who would come out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, it looks like home. Because they're used to living in that situation. So and that makes it even tougher for a military response from somebody outside the country that doesn't know the lay of the land. So you have to, the Yemenis have to take control of what's going on, and the Saudis have got to give them some help.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that terrorists shouldn't have bombs in their underpants. I'm just saying we need to find a way to detonate them before they get on airplanes.